And now I would like to give the floor to our Belarusian colleague, whose company develops and implements artificial intelligence tools for transport logistics in the CIS region. Moreover, as I understand, he will be presenting some innovative solutions for the first time in Russia. Mikhail, the floor is yours. Please tell us where your solutions are being applied and what results you have managed to achieve.
Good afternoon, colleagues. We all probably have to admit that there is a lot of hype right now around the practical use of artificial intelligence. Let's try to take a sober look at the question: what levels of economic benefit can the implementation of artificial intelligence in transport logistics management actually deliver today, and what can't it deliver, and why? We are not newcomers in this field. We have been in transport management for 32 years, and 5,000 companies are connected to us. In many of them, we have implemented our own artificial intelligence algorithms and various levels of correlation computations. And it seems to us that there is a certain paradox in this field which, for some reason, is rarely discussed publicly. So what is this paradox? When we look around us, we see that 98% of artificial intelligence implementations in transport logistics have not taken off yet. What do I mean by that? When we are invited to conduct logistics audits at various companies, we see that some trendy products have been purchased, money has been spent, but unfortunately the promised benefits of reducing overall transport logistics costs by 20, 30, or even 40% are nowhere near being achieved. And it seems to us that there are 4 fundamental reasons for this, which are worth mentioning. The first, from our point of view, is the ambitions of artificial intelligence developers. White-collar workers are simply not used to going down to transport companies and, together with their employees or in their place, actually bringing the company to the promised level of economic efficiency that was advertised. The second problem is the inaccuracy of big data, which is such a trendy topic these days. We talk about big data, look, for example, at Google or even our beloved Yandex. They actually have no idea what lies behind a point on the map in the transport flow they show to all of us. Whether it's a heavy truck, a nimble little van, or maybe even an electric scooter. And since they have no way of knowing, they are forced to lump all this data together into an average, like the average temperature in the hospital, and then make predictions based on that. And what does this lead to? When you use this forecast for planning delivery routes tomorrow, it's obvious that not all vehicles will be able to keep up with such a prediction. And in order to prevent drivers from throwing down their keys and saying, do it yourselves, you are forced to move away from peak optimization and, let's say, arbitrarily lower the speed of the vehicles just to make sure you don't run into conflicts with people. And that means you end up using more vehicles for delivery than you actually need. And that leads to significant losses. The third problem, which is also important, is the uselessness or limited usefulness of narrow solutions. Look, our production process, or as it's fashionable to say, business process, is like a pipe with water flowing through it. If we widen the pipe in just one spot, the water won't flow any faster. If the artificial intelligence developer is not willing to come down to earth and optimize not only the process they understand well, but also the adjacent related processes, then you probably shouldn't expect much economic benefit. And fourth, though not least in importance, by the way, is the stereotypical thinking of logisticians. A logistician is endowed with the authority in our industry to assign routes to drivers for the next day. Some have it easier, some have it harder, and accordingly, they get certain perks from this. Convincing them to give up this power to artificial intelligence is not so simple. That is, you need to work closely with them for a long time, especially with their supervisor, to ensure the right motivation is set up so that they can legally earn more for themselves and for the company. But so, as not to end on a negative note, I want to tell you that there is evidence that this can be implemented effectively. Wildberries and OZON in Belarus do not have their own transportation, and everything was delivered by regular individual entrepreneurs on the 5% tax system. So how can large legitimate transport companies with full taxation compete with these individual entrepreneurs? Of course, you can go to the Ministry of Transport, demand equal business conditions, and so on. Or you can use your head, turn to artificial intelligence developers, something that individual entrepreneurs simply can't afford, and according to the company itself, reduce costs in this case by 20%, while also increasing transport productivity by 15%. So what does this mean? We developed a mobile application for automated handover between the first and second driver of a vehicle, without the involvement of a mechanic. And accordingly, the second driver has no interest in taking responsibility for the first driver's mistakes. He takes detailed photos of the vehicle, documenting everything, breakdowns, scratches, missing parts, spare parts are ordered automatically, and the vehicles spend minimal time in repair. In fact, the company grew fivefold in 5 years, surpassing 50,000 individual entrepreneurs in the area. One mechanic releases 200 vehicles onto the line. So you see, in this presentation, as all reasonable people understand, you can put down any number you want. But the fact that the company has taken a dominant position in our market and captured the lion's share of deliveries for Wildberries and OZON shows that artificial intelligence can be implemented effectively. Moros is a product. The manufacturer produces ice cream. 2,000 stores, 25% of the transport used for deliveries was actually reduced, plus mileage was also cut. The logistics specialist no longer has to create routes. He manages delivery strategies, risk profitability, and ramp management is also automated. Servolux is a well-known poultry producer in Russia, Uzbekistan, and Belarus. 3,000 delivery orders to stores per day, 500 hired independent carriers. So tell me, how do you keep them under control? It's not enough just to install GLONASS or GPS monitoring. It also has to actually work. And the data needs to be of such high quality that it can be used for automation. Anyone who has dealt with this understands it perfectly well. And it was also necessary to automate the control of the cold chain from poultry production to the store shelf. These tasks are highly complex. And in fact, a single logistics specialist spent up to 40% of their time just calculating how much to pay each carrier for today's work. Can you imagine how complicated that is? Different regions, different tenders, different rates, different conditions. And God forbid you offend someone, because then tomorrow they won't show up for unloading and the goods won't be delivered. And by the way, the corporate vehicle fleet for the sales department was also reduced, because not only were the routes for visiting retail locations optimized for the salespeople, but also the robot compresses the vehicle usage schedule so that 5 salespeople can use a single car. Vitrum, 5,000 stores. The annual balance sheet actually showed a 35% reduction in all transportation logistics costs. Previously, it used to be like this. Some store would call and ask for 5 chocolate bars, and we'd immediately rush over there. After all, we are a client-oriented company. Now, the cost of delivering each candy to every shelf in every store is calculated on the fly. And it's not the logistics manager but a robot that decides when a vehicle will be dispatched there, while the logistics manager manages the company's profit strategies and customer orientation. And by the way, here's an interesting case. Corporate sales increased by 20% out of nowhere. Why? Because we managed to send the salespeople out into the field. Today, a salesperson can only fill out a store work card in the mobile app if they are actually inside that store, within its geofence. One last example. 21st Century is the largest online hypermarket in Belarus. They have been working with our artificial intelligence since the very beginning. This is a vivid example that, despite the presence of Wildberries on the market, which everyone criticizes and wonders how to compete with, as well as OZON, these guys have grown to 1 million products in their own warehouse, in their own online store, with 6,000 deliveries a day, all optimized by artificial intelligence. And finally, I want to mention one problem that probably hasn't been brought up yet, and that's a solution here in Russia. And here's what it is. In the real economy, there is a severe shortage of drivers, and no one knows what to do about it. We have a shortage, and for you, if I'm not mistaken, every 4th vacancy is unfilled. In Poland, there is a shortage of 500,000 drivers, and in 3 years, that number will reach 700,000. We started to tackle this problem with a 2-step approach. So first, we interviewed about 10,000 drivers and found out that a driver chooses where to work based on only 2 criteria. The first is the level of salary, and the second is fair treatment. If these are present, the driver will stay with you for life. 20 years ago, we equipped 100,000 drivers with special precision devices to monitor energy losses on every section of every road in Eurasia, and we collected big data. Today, the robot selects thousands of comparable cases with your driver on every kilometer of every road and compares him with drivers across the entire industry, based on the costs he either creates or avoids for your company. It then advises this driver on what actions to take to reduce fuel consumption and to ensure with 100% certainty that he returns home to his family and children safe and sound. Mamont is an online store for building materials delivery here in Minsk. A simple example. Recently, fuel consumption has naturally decreased by 11% due to improved driving quality. This means that transportation maintenance costs have been reduced by 24%. In fact, the number of trips to the auto center to buy new vehicles has been cut in half. So what did this achieve? A line of drivers formed at the company, wanting to work under the same conditions because the salary is 20% higher and the treatment is fair. So, colleagues, I'll say this. I believe that artificial intelligence should not be seen as a magic pill. The thing is, if you want to become an athlete, it's not enough just to buy vitamins and protein. You also need to go to the gym, And if you are ready to work diligently with us on its implementation, only then will you get results that match the advertising. Thank you.
Thank you very much.